A few more thoughts on the liberated important heights of the small village of Andriivka, which no longer exists. This is not just a scorched, to the ground location. A street of a dozen houses, of which only the foundations remained and not everywhere, played an important role in the defense of the enemy on the Andriivka-Odradivka section and being a barrier in two directions. This location, having come under Ukrainian control, allows for pressure both in the northern direction, the Klishchivka area, in the eastern direction, Odradivka, and in the southern direction, Zelenopilya-Kurdyumivka. In fact, the enemy command is now forced to make difficult decisions on how to proceed, and they have several options. The first is to regain control of Andriivka by systematic counterattacks, having previously reinforced the maximally shabby 72 Motorized Rifle Brigade. The second option is to get a foothold beyond the railroad and continue to hold the defense. It seems to the Russian command that even shabby units can hold the whole area behind the railroad, but in fact, no. Just don't tell them that. Especially since it's a lowland and a paradise for cluster munitions. The third option is a gradual, unhurried withdrawal of the enemy's forces to the 0513 highway with the occupation of a hard defense along the line Opatny, Odradivka, Mykolaievka Druga, which is actually the southern gate to Bakhmut. And in all likelihood, it is the third option that will be chosen by the command of the occupation troops. And one very important point. The Ukrainian defense forces throughout this time have been operating in an area where there were enemy forces several times superior to them. In some areas, units 3 to 4 times superior to the forces of the Ukrainian side were operating in defense. In other words, another military stereotype was once again shattered. Having 3 times less forces during the offensive, Ukrainian fighters were able to defeat the enemy in defense. This is simply unbelievable. Not for nothing are the soldiers of the Ukrainian armed forces called the Titans of our time. And these Titans almost every month break new records for the destruction of enemy forces. The first half of September has passed, and there are already at least 3 indicators of destroyed equipment, which gently hint at a record. The first is traditionally barrel artillery. For 2 weeks of September 442 units were destroyed. If the beating of barrel artillery continues at the same pace, then by the end of September there will definitely be a record, at least exceeding 750 units. This phenomenon itself is due to the fact that in a number of directions the Russian artillery is in extremely unfavorable positions, lowlands and open areas. The second expected record is losses of MLRS. To date it is 39 units, and by the end of the month it could be more than 70. These losses are due to the fact that due to the critical shortage of artillery in a number of directions, the enemy is forced to pull up MLRS closer to the front line. And the AFU has recently begun to regularly use high-precision M142 HIMARS to hunt them down. And the third likely record is logistics vehicles, for 83 units of course. It will be difficult to surpass the March 2022 result, when Russian logistics convoys were destroyed non-stop, but at least second place is already guaranteed for this indicator, which is also not surprising. Logistics for the enemy has become very problematic and dangerous in recent months. Most of the arteries are if not under full fire control, then at least under regular exposure. Well, we'll see what the final results will be at the end of the month, but the interim ones are telling. In the meantime, the Allies have actually given the go-ahead for strikes with long-range ATACMS and Taurus missiles on Russian territory. I understood the latest news correctly, right? Of course, in the name of self-defense, you know.